Today we'll be talking about Power BI embedded analytics in general, but always with a focus on Power BI embedded, what it is, what you can do with it, why you can use it, and why it is simply cooler than regular Power BI. Before we really dive into the topic, I just want to give you the agenda of what is waiting for you in the next hour. I'll be talking a little bit about who we are, what we do, and why we do it. Then I'll show a bit of the basics of embedded analytics. What is embedded analytics? Yeah, a bit of the theory behind it. Then I'll specifically move over to Power BI embedded and tell you what that is and how it works and what you can do with it. And then we'll be done with the slides for a while, and I'll be handing over to my co-founder, Vlad, who will do the demo part. So he will be showing you really the code behind embedded Power BI embedded, why it works. So he will really dive into things that you might not have seen before. So he will be showing you the Power BI embedded playground, which is a tool by Microsoft. And then he will also show you our embedded solution, the Embedsy Portal. So you get a bit of a feeling or an understanding how that really feels and looks like in a real life embedded analytics product. He will also explain to you and show you what you could potentially do with embedded analytics. And in the very end, we will have a bit of time for Q&A. So that's the agenda for today. Let me start briefly really with a little bit about us, about Embedsy, so you know who you're dealing with today. Yeah, that's the two of us. That's me on the left. I'm Pascal. We have Vlad, the co-founder of Embedsy, right next to me here. We are both data and Power BI experts, nerds, if you want to say so, right? We can deal with both of it. We both run our own BI consulting companies, both for quite some time. It's 9 years for me, so I think we have been dealing with Power BI for many, many years, and we are implementing Power BI solutions for our customers, and this is also how we met. So we met and we have worked on a couple of Power BI projects together. And yeah, we started wondering why nobody was talking about Power BI embedded, because we knew it exists. We also knew generally what it is and how powerful it is. And we were always wondering, why don't we hear or read about it? So are people really using it? What's the thing? What's the deal with it? So we started digging into it. And that was quite a steep learning curve, because you can be the best at Power BI. That doesn't help you at all with embedded. So there was a lot of learning that we had to do. That took us quite some time to figure out, also because there's not so much content about Power BI embedded compared to regular Power BI. If you're struggling with regular Power BI, there's tons of blog posts and YouTube channels and material and content. With Power BI embedded, you are more or less limited to the Microsoft documentation, which is of course very good, but yeah, there's just less content, so the learning curve quite steep. Anyway, we managed to learn a bit about embedded and how it works. And while doing that, of course, we always thought about what we could do with it. So eventually we had an idea about something, a solution that we could do, which of course helped us much more, because we were like, let's actually develop that. And you know how it is when you develop a real solution, a real tool, you do an even deep dive into the topic. So we started developing our own analytics solution called the Embedsy Portal. Once we had a stable version of it, we wanted to see, is that even something that the market wants? Are there people out there that might want to use it? So we did our first initial go-to-market with our MVP, and luckily we found out that there is a market for that. which of course meant even more development. We hired developers, we were doing a lot more, we added more features to it and so on. And end of last year, we then officially founded the company Embedsy. You might have seen the name already in the last 2 years because we've been working on it for a long time, but now it's really the company is founded. We're still putting a lot of work into the solution to add more features and improve it. And also now it's the time where we have crossed that bridge of the initial steep learning curve, and we want to really also share a bit of knowledge and share a bit of content to show people what embedded analytics is, how it can help, and to also make it easier for other people to learn. So they might not have the struggles that we had in the very beginning. I would like to know who from the people here are using embedded analytics. So please raise your hand or type into the chat if you are using embedded analytics.
We've got Fernando saying that he never used it. Even he said it even before you asked.
Okay, never used embedded. So this is not. I see somebody else is typing. Let's just wait and see what that person says. But basically, this is really the answer I expected. The good thing is, I'm pretty sure that everybody has actually used embedded analytics. So on the screen here, you see 3 screenshots from 3 different apps from my smartphone. So on the left-hand side, we have a banking app. Then here, this is from LinkedIn, where we see how many clicks we had on a post or something like that. And then this is like, I think this is Apple Fit or something. For people that do a bit of exercise and sports, you might have a smartwatch and you're tracking, or some sort of device that tracks your exercises and so on. And that's embedded analytics. So if we go to the banking app, you see that here we see the price of the Microsoft stock. And at the same time, I could purchase or I could sell. So I have the activity, the action I can take, so I can buy or sell. But inside the same app, I have analytics. And I'm sure all of you are using some sort of app on your phone or on your PC. So you're using embedded analytics, at least in your private life. I'm pretty sure everybody does. The thing is, with this kind of embedded analytics, we don't really have control over it. So I cannot really influence what's happening in this chart. I can maybe select different time frames and so on, but it's pre-built. I cannot really change it. I might also not know what the logic behind it really is. But still, this is embedded analytics. So I think everybody is using it in one way or another. If we look at Wikipedia, and I've underlined what I think is important, it says that embedded analytics is really that we integrate analytics into something. So into a software, into a web application, into a website, into a mobile app, which then makes it contextual. So that's also what we saw in my banking app. So in the app, I can buy or sell at the same time as I see the current price, and that's the context. So the analytics gives me the context and shows me whether I should maybe buy or sell a certain stock. So there's no need to switch between multiple applications. So with regular analytics, with Power BI, because we're mainly talking about Power BI today, I switch between my business app, my ERP, CRM, whatever system it is, and the Power BI service. So I first do my work in my app, and then obviously even need to wait for the next refresh of the data and then go and do the analytics, but it's not in the same tool. And embedded analytics really brings the analytics into a software, a web app, or an application. So another question, who's using embedded analytics for work? Because here, For private, I was actually expecting maybe one or two raise of hands. I think now that you have seen what I presented, more people would probably raise their hands. But for work, it's really rare that people say, yeah, we're using embedded. For work, it's a bit of a different story. So what I would like to show you is what such embedded analytics portal could look like. And I will be showing you our solution. This should really not be a sales pitch at all, but I think having a final solution helps, of course, a bit of with the understanding and seeing the difference of Power BI service and an embedded solution. One thing you already notice is that this is not on app.powerbi.com, but it's our custom domain. So this is already our branding. So we bring people, be it internal customers or external customers or partners, to our portal. They might not even know that this is Power BI in the back. They might not even care. And then, of course, everything you see is branded. So we have our little background image here, we have our logo, we have the text that we decided to do. And with embedded analytics, we can also use different forms of logins. So you can see here, we currently have two ways to log in. We have Microsoft authentication using Microsoft Entra, Active Directory with MFA and all that. But also we have just email and password. And I'm now logging in as a regular viewer with this demo user. So I don't have any access to any admin functionality, but this is what this solution now looks like. We also have the navigation on the left-hand side. So this is the reports that this person, that demo user has access to. We can navigate between the different pages of the report. There is a functionality to make it full screen. Of course, the report itself works exactly as it works in the Power BI service. So I can cross filter and I have slicers and all that. So from a Power BI point of view, the report behaves exactly the same. And then we added a few more functions here. So for example, I can switch to dark theme, or I can export the report into PDF, PowerPoint, PNG, and so on. So quite simple, fully branded, and really it doesn't need to look anything like that, because the only thing that's Power BI in here is this part here. So we communicate with the Power BI service, we authenticate. I'll explain how that works later on. And then Power BI says, okay, the user, that demo user has access to this report. So Power BI then gives us this iframe. So basically a little, let's say a container that shows that report. But everything around here, the navigation, this button, this menu, well, anything around the iframe is pure web development. So it doesn't mean that with embedded we must allow full screen. Also, the button could be down here, and we can really feel free. Everything else is fully custom made, full software development. But I think it will become much clearer once I hand over to Vlad, because then you will see a lot of technical stuff, a lot of code, which will make it clearer. Still, what's important is that the app part, so let's say this is the app part, this is the Power BI part, they know of each other. So when I click on something in the app, I get a different page from Power BI. So still we constantly navigate, or we use the Power BI API to retrieve the content that we want to show. Also, of course, the page names, for example, that we show here are exactly the page names that the Power BI developer has created in Power BI. So if I was renaming a page in the service, I would also have this in here. So we always fetch and send and get the latest information between the app and the Power BI service. So this is what it could look like. It could also look completely different. A couple of real case studies. You will see in a second how real they are, about embedded analytics and what it could be used for and why it might be interesting. One of the big advantages, of course, is that it can be fully branded. So if you want to sort of lock in your customers by giving them access to a customer portal, it's probably nice if they log into your domain with your logo instead of giving them access to app.powerbi.com with a guest account and that kind of thing. So the design aspect, I think, super important. Also, we can make it much easier for users. In the Power BI service, there's, I don't know how many functions and how many buttons, but most users that are pure viewers, they don't need all these functionalities in Power BI. So we can make it easier. We could also make it more complex because, again, we can integrate all kinds of functionality that doesn't even need to be related to analytics. Another advantage is, of course, when it comes to pricing. When you consume reports in the Power BI service and you don't have an F64 or a premium or above capacity, every user needs to have a Power BI Pro license. And you might know that Power BI Pro license pricing will go up from $10 per user per month to $14 per user per month in, I think, April or May, while with embedded, this embedded runs on a capacity. So there's no per user licensing, but we pay for the capacity. And then the users themselves, they don't need to be licensed with Power BI Pro or Power BI Premium per user. Then another good reason is the integration, right? So really that we have seamless app integration between our business app and analytics, and we don't need to switch between different apps, Power BI service and whatever business app we're using. And of course, we could argue about this one, but yeah, Power BI Embedded is just cooler than regular Power BI. There's one more slide I want to show, then I'll hand over to Vlad for the demo, which is a bit of the landscape that where I will try to explain how it really works from a technical point of view. So on the left-hand side here, we have our data sources. We have Power BI desktop. Absolutely nothing changes when you develop a report for embedded than when you develop a report for regular Power BI. The development is exactly the same, no changes at all. Even for row level security, you do it exactly the same way. You also publish the report to a workspace in the Power BI service. That's when the changes start to happen. But let me first explain a little bit the right-hand side of this slide. So what we have is the custom app, what I showed you before, for example, portal.embedsy.io. And we still need to communicate with the Power BI service. We still need to authenticate. And to do this, we have a technical user. So even if we have 500 users in our app, technically only one user, one service principal communicates with the Power BI service. We, as the app or the app creator, whoever it is, needs to make sure that the authentication and the access rights inside the app, so who has access to what report, is managed inside the app's code. Power BI does not know, does not care about that. So this is really custom development. So every app needs a bit of a backend, like with user profiles and access rights and roles, and that really depends on the use case, where you can add users to reports. And if that user has access to the report, then this access token is created. And with the access token, we get the embed token, which is sent to the Power BI service to authenticate, and then the Power BI service returns, for example, a report or returns just a single visual, or returns a paginated report. So we can embed all these different artifacts from Power BI. Reports, visuals, paginated reports, dashboards, Q&A experience, dashboard tiles, and so on. But technically, there's only one user that accesses Power BI, even if we had, I don't know, 500 users in the app. So a lot of what we do in terms of authorization is pure coding. It's in the app. But of course, Microsoft gives us the APIs to retrieve the tokens, generate the tokens, make sure that row level security works properly. But really, most of the work is inside the app. What's also important to know is that this technical user here, of course, must have access to the workspace. So the app users, they might not even have a Microsoft account. They definitely don't need access to the workspace. Only this service principal needs to be at least member on the workspace to be able to retrieve those artifacts, those reports. Good. And I think, look at this, 25 minutes. That's exactly what we had planned. So that is a bit from the slides. I'm sure not everything is super clear, but please really put your questions in the chat. We'll take them straight away, or we'll answer them later. But now I'll be handing over to Vlad, who will go much deeper into code and show you what that really looks like.
So we'll do two things in terms of the technical parts. The first thing, we'll look at the Power BI Embedded Playground, a great tool from Microsoft for anyone that wants to learn more about embedding and what you can actually do with it. And then we'll also jump into a bit of our code and look at a few changes that you can do in the code. So I'll do a bit of a few changes in the playground and do the equivalent in our code to see kind of what are the similarities and differences. Right, so I'll jump to the playground, and this is a website that you can all access. There's a very nice feature here, a sandbox, where you can connect to your tenant and select a report that you want from your tenant and really work on that report. So I'll just choose one of ours, hit embed. In a few seconds, you should see it here. Good. And now you have your own sandbox where you can do all sorts of stuff, and all sorts of stuff is on this side. I'll show you in a bit a few things what you can do here. There's lots of things you can interact with almost every aspect of the report. But first things first, and I won't go through all the code here because there's a lot of it, and some of it is even obfuscated. It's not really, for example, this code doesn't show you how to authenticate and how to retrieve the tokens that you need and whatnot. But I'll show you how to quickly change a few things here. So I'll hide the page navigation and the filter pane. And the iframe really has a configuration with a few settings. Again, I won't go through everything, but there's two settings, one for the filter pane and one for the page navigation. They're pretty self-explanatory. These are set to true to be visible. You can just change it to false. And once I run the code, filter pane and navigation will disappear. And that's it, done. So it's really easy. Let's jump into our code and see the same. So in here, I'm on localhost. So this is running locally. This report, so same report, it doesn't have the page navigation because we have it here in our case, but it shows the filter pane. And let's go to our code. Now this looks obviously different. For example, the settings here, you see this nav content pane enabled, which is the equivalent of this page navigation visible. Why is it not the same? Good question. It's because we're using a library to be developed by Microsoft, especially for React. So we're using, our application is built in React, and this is one of the abstractions that we can use to, well, enable and disable the page navigation. So we already get into the little details of developing your own solution. But just to show you that we can do the same, so I'll enable this, and for the filter pane, I'll do the same. I just need to copy this exact same code. This is to show you that the code actually works. I'll just keep the filter. So filters should be off, pagination should be on. If I save this, we should see loading, filter off, pagination on. Good, easy. Now let me show you something that's not that easy to replicate in the code, but something really cool. As I've said, there's all the things you can do with the report through programmatically you have here, and there's two sections here, and I won't go to the difference between what is a report loaded and what is a report rendered. The idea is that you can insert the code that you want to run in here. Let me switch back to true here to see the filter pane and page navigation. And I want to do the following thing. I want to go to this page and change the filter from this slicer. This slicer just tells me, show me the stock prices for these following companies, and I just select them from here. I want to show you that you can programmatically do this. So for example, I'll just choose one company programmatically, and you'll see the changes affecting the report. For that, we'll look for slicer, because we need to take an action on the slicer. Right, how do I move this down? Okay, good. Set slicer, and the nice thing about this is you just drag and drop the code, and it adds a bunch of a few lines of code. So the first section is this filter object, then a try catch where well, there's the activities you do on the report. Let's look at the activities. First thing it does, if you get the pages, and then to this report get pages, gets you all the pages. And just to show you how it looks like, let's just console log them. And also, let's console log the visuals. You also get the visuals on the page. Inspect, go quickly to the console. And once I run this, we should see the pages here. So what this does briefly is it gets the pages, it sets the active page, and it goes to the active page, and then it selects the visual with the type slicer and the name of this name. I'll show you a bit what's that name. Let's run this, and here are the pages. 7 pages, and you'll see, for example, this landing page. You'll see every page and every visual has a bunch of attributes. These are all the attributes that the page has, and you see the display name is landing. The name is something uniquely created that we don't have access to. That's why you see this weird name here. So yeah, you see all kinds of attributes on the pages. Same things on the visuals. There are 18 visuals on the active page being landing, and visual means even text boxes, images, shapes, and all that. Okay, good. Now we know the pages and visuals. Let's change the code a little bit. So I want to first go to the page called card. So I know that I can get the page by using the display name, and I'll just show card, and then I need to navigate through it because this is only selects it, but it doesn't actually navigate through it. So I'll just page set active. This is the code that will go to the page. So if I run this, you'll see that it went to the card. And now let's select the slicer. And you'll see that this logged, the visuals that were logged were the 10 visuals on the card page. And I can see that because in here I have two, let me make this a bit bigger. I have two slicers and I see them here. And let's choose the slicer for the ticker. And you'll notice that I really don't know which one is it that I need to work with, because both of them are titled slicer, and the page that their names don't really, the names don't really help. So this is something that hopefully will help you link what are the programmatic aspects of the report with the actual report, because I'll show you, if I go to the actual report in Power BI Desktop, I'll see that if I look at this slicer, now I think the title was off, and that's why I don't have a specific title for the slicer. But look at this. This visual has a title. It's called Close Price by Date, and you'll see the equivalent if I go to the same visual. It should be this one. It has the title I just looked at. So this title, when you're embedding, is quite important. You probably thought that this, maybe it helps you with regular Power BI development, but in embedding, it's quite important because that's a good way to identify which visual to interact with. Now, if I would change the title of the sticker, I call it sticker slicer or something, and I would publish the report in service, then I would get the title. I won't do that because it takes a while, but I saved, let me get the name, I saved it here, and I'll just pop it here, and this should get the slicer with this name, and apply the filter. Now the filter, we've seen this briefly. This is an advanced filter, which doesn't really work with my slicer because my slicer is just a drop down. Advanced is the equivalent of having here this date advanced filtering. There's again, there's an equivalence between what you can do programmatically and what you see here. So with this slicer, we need a basic filtering, and to do that, and I'll show you again what's the playground really helps with this. Let's get the basic filter, and I know that, for example, a filter. Let's use the let's do this, replace page filters, which again adds a bunch of code. And in this example, they used the basic filter. And I'll just copy this, undo the changes, so I get back to the slicer filter. And I'll just replace all this advanced filter that I don't need with the basic filter. Right, so this is a much simpler filter, and you can see it needs a few things. It needs a table, a column, and the values that I want to interact with. And again, it's really easy to identify those. So for this slicer, I just need to look at what it actually uses. And the slicer uses this table, data_stock, and this column called ticker. And I just have to replace that here. Data stock ticker. And let's choose a company, Microsoft, and look at only that company. And now with this filter, with the fact that I navigate to the card page and then apply that filter, this is what it does. It gets the slicer, and then for that slicer, it says, okay, set the slicer state to the filter I just built here. If I run this, we should see the report navigating and doing all the things that we expected to do. Let's see. Card, Microsoft, and there you go. Filtered the whole slicer, and then the slicers work as normal. They filter the other visuals on the page. So I hope that kind of gives you a hint of how powerful that is. Like we can talk about a few instances where we do this sort of programmatic filtering, but maybe at a later point. Now I want to quickly go through the last slide and really talk about what you can do with embedded, because I noticed while talking to people in the past few years that really, because people don't know what embedded is, when you don't know about the subject, you don't even know what it's you good for or what you can do with it. I want to just mention two things, and because I think these two things are two of the most important and powerful features of an embedding analytics solution. And the first one is we can finally get to the holy grail of analytics. So what is that holy grail? In my opinion, is this phrase that everybody talks about, and I'm sure you've heard of it, is insights to action. This is what everyone wants to do with analytics. And again, I'll show you exactly, because this is real. Now, insights to action, a lot of people just add it to their websites because it's good for SEO. But with embedded, you can actually do this. And again, we'll go to a playground. And again, it's a really nice use case here. They even have a section that's called Go from Insights to Action. And here it is. You have a simple report here, but there's something new here. There's a button that when you press, I'll show you. Let's filter for, like, in France. I have all the people in France, and I hit this button. And this is new. This is something that you could never do in regular Power BI, because what that button did is open a window that's not Power BI. What it did, it brought all these people. Let's change this just to show you that that's what it does. So it brings all those people that I filtered, brings them outside Power BI. This is a list probably built in React or another programming language. And then you can do all sorts of stuff with this data. In this example, they have I can send them a coupon and can send them the message, and then hit send, and that's done. Of course, this doesn't do anything, but imagine you had buttons here that were actually connected to your mailing service or to Slack or to any service you work with. And that's how you can really, you really close the gap between analytics and action. You cannot go much tighter than this. You literally have your data, you get the data, and you perform an action. So now with embedded, it's possible. And I've been saying this for a while. I think the future of analytics is embedded analytics. And the next thing I want to show is how, well, the next thing that embedding allows, which is, again, really powerful, and it's I believe it's accessible for every company, small or big. I think actually that smaller companies are more in a better place to do this, and that is productize services. If you think about it, every company nowadays works with data. It generates data, it uses data, it doesn't matter if it's big or small. Small data is super helpful for that company's customers, suppliers, partners. And if a company leverages their data to create experiences and to create analytics that actually help and deliver value to their partners, there's really no limit in how you can use the data to generate revenue and generate value in general. And I want to give you one simple example, and I'm not affiliated with this company at all, but I learned a few years ago that they do embedded analytics with Power BI, and it stuck with me because this is a company that is 11 billion in market cap, publicly traded in the US, and look at them, look at what they do. This is Power BI embedded. Like this black bar here is their application, I'm sure, and all this here is Power BI. And you can argue that they might need some work, their reports might need some work, but this is a 11 billion market cap company that does Power BI embedded, and they've been doing it for years, and they're not even into analytics. They're doing construction, everything you can think about construction, and they even have a section for analytics, and I bet you they charge money for it. And I bet you they have customers that pay for it and they're happy with it. And there's a lot more companies that could do this. If you think about lawyers, accountants, Power BI development, any service that generates and uses data, you can do embedding and get new ways to drive business and deliver value. And just to close this off, this is one of the main reasons we started Embedsy, really, is to show people that you can do this, and for those that are interested, to even give them the possibility to do this through our platform. I believe now we can jump into the Q&A if we have time left.
There were already a couple in the chat, and I'm also, I think not everybody expected this to be so code heavy. I think, a regular Power BI user might say, okay, embedded is probably very similar. It's a few clicks more here and there, but basically it's a completely different skill set. So it's pure development. It's the Power BI part is really the tiniest part of Power BI. Embedded is Power BI. You need to learn APIs and web development, but what you showed with adding the filters and hiding and showing filter panes and pages is one of the many things we can do. And what we always need to think about is how to make the app interact with the Power BI part. What currently the Power BI service does for us, now we need to develop all that. And really the real power, of course, comes in when additional functionality is added. Your data to or insights to actions is really key here, I think. People loved the code heavy. Maybe not all, but that's good. That's good to hear. I think we can take a few questions.
There was a question from Brandon that I said we should take to the Q&A because it's asked a lot, and that is, how does this solution, the programmatic embedding, differ from using a public embedding without SQE capacity? So the main difference is security. In a public embedding is, as it says, public. Everyone can access that iframe. Once you add it to your website, I can go through the code of the website, inspect, get the iframe, and then I can copy it and use it on my website or anywhere I want. In programmatic embedding, you cannot do that because you require to authenticate, and we haven't seen this because that would really be hardcore coding, but you can do a session for those who want that, is how to how to authenticate, how to get the right tokens and all that process. And that really takes this or makes this solution a secure, well, that part, and there's a few other things to make it fully secure, but that's the main difference.
There was also a question about is there a limit on the number of users? And my answer was technically no, there's not a limit on number of users, but if you are using a cheap Fabric F2 capacity, you probably don't want to have 1,000 users accessing your portal at the same time. So the limit is not in the number of people. It's really what your capacity gives you. So the higher the capacity is, the embedded or the Fabric or the Power BI Premium, but Power BI Premium, you will not be able to purchase new ones. So let's say Fabric and embedded. Embedded works on every capacity size, but the lower capacity you have, the better optimized the models need to be. Data volume plays a role, and of course, the number of users you have at the same time. So that is really the limit that you have, even with if you just use an F2 capacity for internal use, you still need to make sure that you will have the same limits basically. So, but yes, it's important to know every Fabric capacity, even the F2, allows embedding. I see. Yes, sorry, yeah.
There are a couple of questions about API tokens, and I'm going to just quickly summarize it. Briefly, it's how do the API tokens remain fresh or refresh, and if you have to re-authenticate, or if I republish the semantic model, how do the tokens behave? And the simple question to this is that you have to handle authentication and refreshing of tokens yourself programmatically. So that's one of the real base things you have to perform in order to have a solution that actually works, because sooner or later, and it's usually a token remains active for 30 minutes. If you don't programmatically refresh that, you basically you log in, you see the report after 30 minutes, you're out. And well, it's simple, but it's not always easy to. Well, you have to programmatically refresh it.
Yeah, I think every token has a lifetime, right? There's a default lifetime that we could change in the code, but there's a certain limit that you cannot go over. So you cannot have a token that just simply never expires. But yeah, that's one of the many things that we need to really handle inside the code. But security, I think security generally, of course, a very important topic, but security, we handle in the app the generation of the tokens, let's say. But when it comes to things like row level security, as long as we give the right token to the Power BI service, the Power BI service takes care that only the data that the specific user is allowed to see is returned in the iframe in the app. So row level security in the end is the regular Power BI row level security. So there's nothing really also in the report, in the semantic model when developing, creating the roles is exactly the same. And what's also interesting, I think, is that it works with both types of RLS. So it works with the static roles and it works with dynamic roles, because even though the Power BI service doesn't know what user is logged in, because it's always that technical user, the app knows what user is logged in and can create a token for that specific email. And if that email is not part of the dynamic RLS, then basically no data is returned the same way that it would work in the Power BI service.
We have 5 minutes left and two questions. One is kind of an open question. I'll start with the other one, which is more specific, which is if Embedsy runs as a React web app only, or do we have a React native mobile app as well? Embedsy is a React, or more specifically Next.js web application that is responsive on mobile. We don't have a mobile app. We don't have it on a roadmap yet, but our Embedsy is mobile responsive. Now, of course, it doesn't matter if your app is mobile friendly if your report is not mobile friendly. Again, this is programmatically handled, but also the Power BI development or the developer needs to create the Power BI report, but also create the mobile view. And we work with mobile reports. You simply like programmatically is not that hard to implement. You simply show the report in mobile view once the window of your once the window and Embedsy does that. You can open it on mobile, and when mobile friendly reports show correctly.
I think really the difficult part there is the development of the mobile friendly report in Power BI Desktop. So really, I mean, with regular Power BI, it's sometimes difficult to really get the report right. So from the embedded part, that's really the simple bit, but it's the Power BI developer that needs to really create that report in mobile. Maybe I would just quickly, because it's sort of related, I might also quickly show the landscape of what we technically use, right? Because the Embedsy portal, the code that Vlad showed before, is deployed into Azure, so into the customer's Azure environment. So basically, when you install the Embedsy app, we install several services, resources in Azure. The app service, that's really where the code runs, or where the logic happens, where the app runs. Tiny little SQL server where for user data and what reports are uploaded and that kind of thing. We have a storage account because people can add their custom logos and things like that. So that needs to be saved somewhere. And then, of course, what is needed is a Fabric or a Power BI embedded capacity. But that's basically what's needed from an infrastructure point of view to make an embedded portal. It doesn't have to be like that. Theoretically, you could have it run on an on-prem server if you like to do, right? Your own embedded solution. But we just decided to have everything fully automated in Microsoft Azure, because then we also know we're not running into issues with authentication with Microsoft and that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be like that. That's just what we decided to do. And technically, yes, it would be possible to have a mobile app, an Android iOS app, but yes, so far we haven't received that request yet, but who knows?
Did we take the last question? Do we have more time, or?
Yes, let's do one more, and then the rest we can also reply via email later on. No problem.
So the kind of open question was about AI agents and embedded, and you can you can do another full webinar about this. I'll just quickly say that, well, if you, since everything is programmatically and Power BI, you communicate with Power BI through their API. AI agents, again, you communicate with APIs. You can really tell them to communicate and programmatically communicate. If you train, I can see a trained LLM or agent to work with the, what I showed you in the playground with the Power BI pages and reports and all those attributes. And I can see a solution where you ask an agent in plain English to do something in the report, and if the agent is well trained on the structure of the Power BI API, it should interact quite well with the report.
What's currently not supported yet is, but by Microsoft, is Copilot. So there's no embedded Copilot, but I don't remember where, but at some Microsoft event, I heard that of course they are planning to also enable Copilot in embedded, but so far it's not. And of course, once Copilot is enabled in embedded, we'll add some Copilot functionality in embedded. Yeah. You cannot these days. I don't think you can develop a web app without any kind of AI functionality. So, but yes, AI is such a big topic. It's mostly that would be custom development. It's not really that we can say it can do AI, because what exactly it is that people want to do might be very different from one person to the other. But yes, I think we're very good in time. Thanks everybody for joining us. If there's any questions left that we haven't answered yet, we have everybody's email from the sign up, so we'll make sure to get back to you, and hopefully you'll join us again when we do the next webinar, maybe even a deeper dive into the code, or maybe something a bit more simple. Also interesting for us. So if you have any feedback, please let us know what you think and what topics you'd like to see next time. Yes. Until next time, thank you very much.
Ciao.